Good morning, guys. It's Nick at Optum PS. Hope you're all well. Thanks once again for coming back to my channel. I really do appreciate it. As ever, guys, if you like what I say today, please do punch that like button, subscribe to the channel, share me on social media, and perhaps most importantly, drop me some comments. I am going to ask a favor today, which is that you do drop me some comments because this video is going to be slightly different. I've been asked to talk at a upcoming financial function. Basically just to do an introductory speech, and I'm more than happy to do that. I do that quite a lot actually, but it's something that crosses over with our agenda on this channel as well. So I figured I would practice my speech in front of you guys because the information I'm sharing is hopefully of importance to you, or at least will hopefully plant a few seeds in your brain and get your old cogs ticking to think over what I'm about to say. And also you can tell me if my speech is good, bad, or shit, or whatever you want to tell me, to be perfectly honest. Any feedback is appreciated. I'd rather look a fool in front of you guys than in front of 1,000 people in a financial forum. So that would be very, very much appreciated. So please do drop me any comments you want to say. So before we get into that, as ever, my name's Nick. You know me by now. I'm a financial advisor, but I'm absolutely not your financial advisor. So anything I say or do in today's video is strictly a man sharing his opinion on the internet, in the hope that I bring some value to you, and in this particular case, in the hope you bring me a little bit of value back, for which I'm eternally grateful for any help you can offer. So getting back to the point of the video, or let's go first of all, just take a quick look at the markets. We're back into fear at the moment. We're sitting at, well, it says neutral, but I would call that slightly into fear at 41. Markets have had a little bit of a dip yesterday, haven't they? Nothing to write home about really in the crypto world, but Bitcoin's down 1.42, Ethereum 2.23, Sol 3.44, XRP 1.37, Dodge nearly 4%. Tron's up there at the bottom, you can just about pick out. To be honest with you, that's crypto on a daily basis, right? We go up, we go down. We'd had a bit of recovery the last couple of days, and then we've dipped off again. So 7 days we are still down now in most coins. XRP's taken a bigger hit now than most, and then that is reflective of the SEC coming out with the appeal. I don't care about the appeal. It's not been overly impactful, but we are more down than others. That's got to be taken into account. There's probably some people who got scared and ran away. And the simple fact of the matter is you don't need to be scared and run away. It's only been a minor impact. Bearing in mind it's quite a major announcement. And I think the market has absorbed it well. I think most holders have gone, we're not bothered about this anymore. We know that XRP has legal clarity. So the rest of it is just noise in the background. Carry on, do your thing. I suspect the SEC will appeal. I suspect they'll and follow through on that appeal. I don't think there'll be any settlement, which is something we've read about soon. I also suspect they'll be unsuccessful in their appeal. They'll probably paint it as a success regardless. I think they'll end up with a bit more money. And it's not my money. I don't think it will be enough money to make me concerned that Ripple's going to go bust anytime soon. So we're in a nice position moving forwards anyway. So let's get onto this then. So the reason I want to do this with you guys is that this speech it's not in depth, but it's something that is relevant to where we are. So I thought I'd just pump on with the speech, show you a couple of little instantly grabbed Google pages that highlight what I'm talking about, and see what you all think, and hopefully it plants that seed of thought in your mind. The speech, or the title of the speech, is The Impact of Global Regulations and Infrastructure on Mass Adoption of Technology and the Impending Mass Adoption of Cryptocurrencies. So that's where it comes into play with us guys, and the theme of this channel. But it's something that I just thought would be worth running by you, more to plant the seed than to ask for your help, but any help you can come back to me with is always greatly appreciated. So it begins with, ladies and gentlemen, today we explore a critical theme that underpins the evolution of technology throughout history: the powerful role of global regulations and infrastructure in driving mass adoption. From the advent of television and radio to the rise of electronic vehicles and digital banking, we see a consistent pattern. When regulations are established and infrastructure is developed, adoption rates soar. So let's start with the early days of communication technology, the introduction of television and radio in the mid-20th century. There will be slides on this speech, by the way, guys. This is kind of me playing around with what the sort of slides will be. But the radio and the introduction of television and radio in the mid 20th century transformed how we receive information. Governments recognized the potential of these technologies and established regulations to allocate frequencies, to ensure content standards and protect consumers. This regulatory framework laid the groundwork for widespread adoption. By the 1960s, nearly 90% of American households owned a TV, illustrating just how regulations created a safe environment for consumers to engage with new technologies. Next, consider the automobile industry. So if we move on to the automobile industry, sorry, there I've just got a couple of clips of the early TVs, radios, followed by what we see today. That's a bar with a huge, great TV in there. But moving on, next consider the automobile industry. In the early 1900s, the automotive industry faced numerous hurdles, including safety concerns, traffic management, and governments worldwide began to implement regulations, from vehicle safety standards to road infrastructure and development. The establishment of paved roads and traffic laws not only facilitated automobile use, but also increased consumer confidence. By the mid-1950s, the US saw an explosion in car ownership, with millions of families embracing this new model of transportation. And again, we move on, we see where we've come from that early model of the Ford T. Moving on, I've got the Tesla Cybertruck, mainly as a nod to our friend Elon. We use his platform a lot, and if nothing else, it wouldn't be my cup of tea, the Cybertruck, but I can see its uses, right? It's moved on a great deal from that early model Ford. Fast forward to the digital age, where the internet revolutionized how we communicate and do business. Initially, the internet was a tool for a select few, but global regulations regarding data, privacy, cybersecurity, and net neutrality played a pivotal role in making the internet accessible and safe for the general public. The creation of frameworks like the General Data Protection Regulation Act in Europe established trust, leading to the internet's mass adoption. Today, over 5 billion people are now online. So again, that goes back to the early use case of the internet. It was for a select few, it's for one or two people. The regulations and the infrastructure were of equal importance. Before people had Wi-Fi at home, before we had a modem back in the early days, before we had a computer in the early days, there was very little use of the internet. The internet came about and people initially screamed, "This is unsafe, what do we do? This is strange. What about crime? What about bad people?" And so the regulations came out, and with that, the confidence has grown and grown and grown. Investing too has seen significant transformation. So stock investing was once limited to wealthy individuals. However, with regulations like the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, which aimed to protect investors and ensure fair trading practices, the stock market became more accessible. Today, platforms like Robinhood and E-Trade allow individuals to invest, contributing to a surge in retail investment. So we go from the early days with the stock papers and things like this, moving forward to today, where literally anyone can log on. You jump through a few hoops, and you can trade on things like Robinhood, like eToro, and we can all trade. When I began in the finance world, I worked for a company in the UK. We did stocks and shares, mainly with pension portfolios where we were allowed to manage them, and go into direct stocks and shares and things like that. And we had something we called a Bloomberg box. Now, a Bloomberg box was about the same size as one of those old-fashioned telephone boxes that you would step in and close the door, if you remember those, if you're old enough to remember those days. So they were about as big as a man. Maybe, in fact, let's go with a door. Let's take the front door of your house and create a cuboid out of it, or a rectangle prism out of it. They were about 7 feet tall. Anyone could stand inside them, close the door, and make a phone call. It's about the same size as that. So let's go 7 feet tall by 4 feet by 4 feet, or something like that. And we had this box in the corner, and it was a huge grate. It was basically a badly powered computer, I would say. But at the time, this thing was revolutionary. We called it the Bloomberg box. So what would happen is, in the morning, my boss would go over, he'd press a button, And if you remember the old-fashioned computer paper, the ticker tape paper that came out in big long reams, it was all tied together with a perforated edge at the in between each sheet. It would print out reams and reams and reams of stock information, which was from the close of business in the US the night before. So in the UK, we're about 8 hours behind the US or behind um, the Chicago time, which is what we use more than anything else. And we get this pumping out. And basically, what would happen is this would come out the next morning for us, and we'd see what the stocks did yesterday. And that was the cutting edge information that we would use to go on and talk to our clients. Now, again, our clients were very, very wealthy individuals in the UK. This wasn't an everyday thing. You may have got stock information in one of the bigger broadsheet newspapers, you know, the posh paper as we used to call it, the one that the educated people would use. That was it. The Financial Times. Basically, you didn't get much more. Information wasn't at your fingertips. If you asked the man in the street what the price of Apple was doing in 1992, he wouldn't have had a clue. You know, it put us at the cutting edge of the industry. Our competitors were eternally jealous that we had this thing. And quite frankly, today everyone has far, far greater tools on their mobile phone. Not everyone uses them, but everyone has those tools. So moving on. Electric vehicles present another compelling example. Initially, high costs and limited infrastructure hindered their adoption. So again, I'll go back to our Tesla again at the moment. However, government regulations such as tax incentives and emission standards, alongside the establishment of charging networks nationally, have dramatically increased EV sales. In the US, EV sales surged by over 70% from 2020 to 21, showcasing how supportive regulations can accelerate adoption. Now, in that, I'm going to add another point. There was a long period of time where every major car manufacturer had the ability to push forward with EV. They weren't incentivized by the governments. That's one side of it. The other side of it is they couldn't be bothered. They were too busy milking the cash cow that was traditional energy-powered vehicles, gasoline, diesel. They didn't need to push forward to EV. So the other side that pushes that is competition. And competition came in the form of our mate Elon and Tesla. They came out with a car that suddenly was challenging them and taking away sales from the automotive industry in the traditional sense. And so suddenly the competition meant they had to go. Nobody bothered with EVs until one company pushed forward and started to take a piece of the pie. Then everybody got on board very, very quickly. That's what I think will happen with the cryptocurrency sector. Nobody needs to bother right now moving away from Swift, moving away from these traditional channels of transferring money, of holding physical assets, real asset, tokenization, that kind of thing. The moment one company starts to do it and takes away a piece of the old infrastructure's pie, that's when they'll jump on board. So finally, let's consider digital banking. The rise of fintech was marked by the need for regulatory frameworks to ensure consumer protection and security. So again, we're going on to the digital banking side of things. With the introduction of regulations such as the Payment Services Directive 2, brackets PSD2, in Europe, traditional banks and new fintech companies have been compelled to innovate and compete, leading to a surge in digital banking users. Today, over 2 billion people are now engaged in online banking globally. And again, there's a bell curve to this, right? There's a tipping point. This begins with people who are the innovators, the very, very few who jump on board. I've done a video on this in the past, but they jump on board. So in the early days of digital banking, I remember working back in the UK again. We did mortgages at this point in time, other things as well, but mortgages was one of the things we offered. And I remember a colleague of mine going, "Oh, this bloke's applied for a mortgage, Nick. You can deal with him because he's a bit of a smarty pants when it comes to technology." Now, what was the guy? Was he an MIT graduate? Was he, no, no. He just happened to have a bank called Intelligent Finance, which was the digital finance arm of a company called Halifax in the UK. And that was enough to convince my older colleague that this bloke thought he was a smarty pants when it came to information technology things, and he passed it to me, the young guy in the office, because he thought I was better equipped to deal with it. That was all it took. In them days, no one had a digital bank. This was probably 2000, something like that, maybe 2002 or 3. Not many people banked online in those days. It's come a long way very, very fast. They hit a tipping point on the bell curve and everything flows in. So now let's turn our attention to cryptocurrencies, a technology poised for mass adoption but are currently hindered by regulatory uncertainty. The potential of cryptocurrencies lies in their ability to facilitate seamless transactions, enhance financial inclusion, and tokenize real-world assets. However, without clear regulations and guidelines, many individuals and institutions remain hesitant. As countries begin to establish regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies, addressing concerns around safety, fraud prevention, and consumer protection, we will likely see accelerated adoption, just like in the other sectors discussed. According to recent studies, estimates suggest that by 2025, approximately 1 billion people could be using cryptocurrencies in some form or other, ranging from everyday transactions to investments. Financial institutions are also preparing for the shift. A report from McKinsey indicates that global banks are beginning to allocate significant resources to integrate cryptocurrency services, with potential investments reaching upwards of $2 trillion in the cryptocurrency sector over the next decade. This includes banks facilitating cross-border transactions, enabling businesses to send and receive money more efficiently. Moreover, the tokenization of real-world assets, everything from real estate to commodities, could unlock trillions of dollars in liquidity. By creating digital representations of physical assets on the blockchain, we can democratize access to investments that were previously out of reach for many. Estimates suggest that the tokenization market could exceed $24 trillion by the year 2027. So, in conclusion, I won't bother with the conclusion there, guys. I'll jump onto that a little bit more. The speech was, it's a little bit about me practicing, but it's more about showing you what I'm going to be discussing with some of these big institutions. I can't tell you the names of the banks that will be there, but trust me, if you guess the 20, 30 biggest banks you know, you'll hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you exactly what this is about because, again, I'm not supposed to, but you can second guess what this conversation is going to be about, right? In terms of my side of things, it's a way of just showing you what we're at that tipping point right now. They are looking at things right now. This is an article from Fintech Futures. Don't even know this webpage, to be perfectly honest with you. But Swift gears up for 2025 live trials of digital asset transactions. Most of you have seen a post about this. I shared something on social media about it over Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Swift is about to conduct live trials of digital asset transactions. Now, it doesn't say which digital assets they're going to use. I think many people know they've got a link with Link. There's also connections to things like XRP. I shared a tweet the other day. I tried to find it today. I couldn't find it actually, but basically there is a document we've seen surface to our friend Smoke Dog, and he points out that Swift have published flowchart documents and illustrational documents talking about the live assets and specifically name XRP. They don't say it will definitely be XRP, but they name XRP as an example of a digital currency, and actually they only name one, which is a bit indicative if you ask me. But the point is, when I see things like this is like a kid at Christmas when you see that Coca-Cola advert with the truck train coming in, the Santa Claus is coming, Santa, all that. It tells you this is coming, and I get excited like a kid who sees that advert because I know this is what we need. Nothing happens without governmental approval and regulation. It just doesn't. We get this far. We get to the tipping point where they know there's no holding this train back. They have to let it go in. Wild horses couldn't hold this thing back now. It's happening, and the governments know it's happening. They're coming in. I mean, right now we have 2 presidential candidates in the US. One is absolutely on board. He's recognized that this thing is happening, and he's recognized, I don't know if he cares about it personally, but he's recognized the voting public do. If you think there's apparently 50 million digital wallets open in the US now, I'm not saying everybody uses them, I'm not saying there's 50 million people necessarily, but there's probably 25 million people who've at least looked at cryptocurrency. That's a big chunk of the voting public. That could be a swing number. Yeah. The other side are slower, but they're suddenly making noises like they are about to embrace this thing. I'm not saying they are as on board as our friend Mr. Trump, but in the same respect, they are embracing this to a certain degree, slower, more reluctantly, perhaps, but they have no choice. Both sides of the political spectrum in the US are looking at this as a important subject to cross. Globally, I think almost half the world will see general type elections this year. All sides of the political spectrum are addressing this now and getting on board. The US is the slowest, in fact, and both sides of the political parties are crossing this subject. Around the rest of the world, most countries are further ahead in their adoption. Adoption is probably a big word, but in their embrace of the crypto sector. This is coming regardless. When the regulations come, it's not a bad thing. It's the greatest thing we could hope for, because regulations mean we've already hit that tipping point. We're already pushing, accelerating towards this now. Regulations just mean it's like laying the foundations. If you have a train and no track to run it on, it's useless. The regulations are the track. They're the track. The tracks, the foundations are being laid right now. Will it be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Well, going back to that speech, estimates suggest that tokenization market could exceed $24 trillion by 2027. Estimates suggest 1 billion people could be using cryptocurrency in one way or other by 2025. And that's retail. That's everyday people using it. The other billions of people will be using it without knowing it, because every bank will take this. Once the regulation comes, every bank will use this thing. And so people will my dad will never know that he's using cryptocurrency. He'll have no clue. He's 73 years old. If he sends money to me or I send money to him, it goes right now via the old-fashioned banking network. There'll be a message sent by Swift, and then the ledger balances will be adapted to reflect the fact that I've lost $100 and he's gained $100, right? He'll never know that it moves via cryptocurrency instead. He doesn't need to know. And they may never even reduce his fees. I think that's something the banks will do. I think they'll reduce the fees for themselves and not necessarily pass that on to the clients. They might do a little bit. But again, my dad will never know that he uses cryptocurrency. So he's not one of those billion people, but he'll be using it. My grandma's still alive. My nana, she's 93, 94. She'll use it. She won't know that she uses it, but she'll use it. I live across the world. She sends money to the grandkids at Christmas. She'll send it via digital cryptocurrencies in one way or form. And she'll never know, but she'll be using it. This is coming, guys. Hopefully that all makes sense. It wasn't too in-depth. I don't like to go too deep with these things anyway, but hopefully it brought some value to you, and it tells you we are closer than you believe. We still, we're not in the last yard or two yet. There's still a bit more than that. The US is the slowest in coming around to this, but they are coming around to this, and they're the most important ones. So when they come, they come. But realistically speaking, it's just a case of running that by you. Please do give me some feedback on the speech, guys. It is always very, very welcome. Yeah, tell me it's shit. If it's shit, it's something that will help me. I'll put it in the bin and start again. But hopefully the points it raised were pertinent to you guys as well. It's coming. And that's the important point. When regulation comes, that's the last hurdle. When regulation comes to the US, the floodgates will open and this thing will go bigger than you can ever imagine. I'm going to leave that with you guys. Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. As I said, it would be so helpful if you could drop me a comment and just let me know how that went, how it sounded. If you think I'm right or wrong, is always welcome as well. I've been going for 24 minutes, guys. So that's longer than I tried. I normally go over my given time spell. So I do thank you so much for sticking with me. We are Tuesday afternoon. I'm off for a round of golf. Have a great day ahead, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks again, Nick.